There comes a point in every man's life where he plays a game long enough to start developing a burning hatred for it. After enough hours, every single little nitpick and flaw begins to stick out more obviously with each passing day, sending him spiraling into manic episodes and borderline insanity. All the more, that man still decides to submit himself to the mental anguish of continuing to play said game. But for what? Well, unfortunately, I can't give you the answer to that question because I've fallen victim to that exact scenario myself. Come on, don't act like it's never happened to you. For me, it actually happened with this game right here. Ew, not that one. I mean, it happened with this game. Oh, don't mind that. Sorry. This game, Super Mario Maker 2. Welcome to episode 3 of Creating the Best Sequel, a show where we aim to take a deep dive into the design of our favorite games and discuss what could be done to create the greatest sequel possible. This episode covers Super Mario Maker 2, the obvious sequel to the Wii U's Super Mario Maker, bringing tons of improvements, additions, and extra features. However, this game is far from perfect, and I think I've played it enough to be able to pick it apart at every limb possible. In some areas of this game, a great leap forward is made, and in others, an unexplained step backwards is, all while missing crucial features that many players have asked for since even before the first game came out. Let's talk about it. Before I even start to say anything about potential improvements to this game, I'm going to need to clear some things up. I will not be suggesting specific course parts such as blocks, enemies, bosses, gizmos, and sound effects. I will also not be suggesting new themes or game styles, as the gravity of the addition of any of these is highly subjective. It's already obvious that these types of changes will be in the next game anyway. Additionally, I'm doing my best to keep my suggestions within the realm of possibility. It's obvious that Nintendo likes to keep it pretty simple in terms of the functionality of the editor with Mario Maker, so I won't be suggesting anything crazy like a built-in pixel art editor or logic interface. All of the changes will either be for quality of life or lifting unnecessary restrictions on the player. Can you please add Walter White into the next game? What the f*** is wrong with you? Only suggesting these content additions to the game doesn't really carry the conversation forward, as these additions don't necessarily improve the game, they only make it bigger. Regardless, there are some additions that will actually improve the game, but the list is much shorter than all the possible additions that could be made, and I plan on mentioning those useful ones later regardless. The issues in Mario Maker 2 go far beyond the level editor itself. Many problems are apparent while browsing and playing others' levels as well, with the first one being the complete lack of a true search option for levels. As it stands, the only way to get to a specific level is to type in the 9-digit code associated with that level into the ID search. There is no way to search for levels by name at all. The only other method of searching for levels is to use the detailed search option, which allows you to search by a variety of different filters. However, this isn't nearly enough to find an actual specific level or search for a specific keyword. Not to mention, it's extremely tedious to do in the first place. For instance, the amount of tags used to filter levels is extremely limited and sometimes extremely vague. Like, what is technical even supposed to mean? That could be applied to so many scenarios. I'm also confused as to why they have a tag as specific as shooter, but not a tag for multiplayer co-op, a literal mode in the game. The only instance I could think of a shooter level being made would be something like a fire Koopa Clown car with some floating enemies. It's just such a useless and niche tag in my opinion, and would only make sense if there were a much larger amount of tags in general, considering how specific it is. Additionally, this also happens to be one of the areas where Mario Maker 2 takes a step back in comparison to its predecessor. In the original, there was the Super Mario Maker bookmark site, which had pretty much the same search functionality of searching by tags like in the current game, but it also allowed you to search by level code. The big difference between the site and the in-game search options though is that obviously you can copy and paste text on whatever device you're using the site from, whether it be a phone, tablet, or computer. Wherever you're receiving the level code from, you can literally just copy and paste it into the bookmark website. From there, you click the bookmark button and the course immediately shows up on your Wii U to be played. Surprisingly, there was never such a site created for Mario Maker 2, and the original one even shut down completely on March 30th of 2021. Even though the site still didn't let you search for courses by name, it was far more streamlined than what we have now, and at least a step in the right direction. I'd also like to mention how the system in place to find superworlds is flawed. Superworlds are attached to the creator's profile, only allowing one to be uploaded at a time. However, the only way to find superworlds other than searching the creator's maker ID is to use the superworld browse page. Browse is a very generous word here though. On this page, you are given a random selection of 10 superworlds to choose from. You can either choose to play any of these or refresh and get 10 more random superworlds. There is no popular section, there is no detailed search, nothing. Superworlds should have received the same treatment as singular levels in how they were organized, so I'm not sure why this approach was taken. In a similar realm of conversation, the hot courses section of the level browser always baffled me as well. There was never any explanation as to what kind of courses get into this section. From what I've noticed, it literally just takes recently published levels with a number of likes just slightly above 0 and adds them into this category. The large majority of them are of extremely low quality and unenjoyable to play, so it's obvious the algorithm being used here isn't beneficial. An actual search by name option in the level browser could replace this tab, and I'm sure literally nobody would care. This is telling me there's hot courses in my area. Should I click it? Sir, this is a Dunkin' Donuts. Moving forward though, let's talk about when you actually begin to view a level in the browser. This area showcases the level's name, a screenshot, the course description, the creator's name, the current world record for the level, the clear rate, and the course's ID. But let's take a look at the world record first. As it stands, the world record time is displayed without a way to view a replay or ghost of the world record holder's gameplay. Adding a way for players to view the world record holder's attempt would be a great way for others to learn and for competitors to improve their best time. The concept of ninja speedruns is perfect for this, as the player could view a replay of the run the same way they view it in official ninja runs, where the ghost ninja runs alongside the player during the level to show their route. Pretty much any game that keeps track of speed records already has this feature, even some Nintendo published ones. Next, there's the clear rate, or the ratio of attempts that completed the level compared to the total attempts on the level, which is displayed as either a percentage or a fraction. Now, I don't want to talk about the clear rates in specific, rather the difficulties that are associated with them. Currently, there are 4 difficulty classifications for levels: easy, normal, expert, and super expert. Easy is usually anything above a 30% clear rate, normal between 30% and 10%, expert between 10% and 3%, and super expert being anything below a 3% clear rate. However, as you may have seen, some super expert levels tend to get much lower than a 3% clear rate, and the range of difficulties for super expert is the largest out of all the difficulty levels, despite it only having a margin of 3 total percentage points. Some levels even have a clear rate so low that it just displays as 0% in the level browser. I think it would be beneficial to add another category after super expert such as pro to better classify the extremely difficult levels. This clear rate could be classified as only below 1%, or even better, only below 0.5%. Doing this would greatly improve the classification of the more difficult levels, and allow others who are looking for the super difficult ones to find them more easily. Finally, I have one more suggestion about the level browser, and it's yet another step back from the first Mario Maker that needs to return. In the first game, you were allowed to save others' courses into your course bot and look at them in the editor. In Mario Maker 2, you can only download courses to play them, not edit them. This feature allowed players to examine levels to see how they worked and even practice super difficult portions starting from any point in the level that they needed. You would assume this feature was removed in order to prevent players from copying others' levels and uploading them as if they were their own. But downloaded courses weren't allowed to be re-uploaded in the first game anyway, and this restriction would be fine to keep. In addition, anyone who wonders how a level works behind the scenes, outside of the player's view, such as an elaborate troll or puzzle level, can't even enter the editor to figure it out, for seemingly no reason. Additionally, I want to talk about some changes that could be made when you're actually playing a level. With the current setup, the only navigational options to you in the pause menu are Start Over and Exit Course. Start Over sends you all the way back to the beginning of the level, deleting all checkpoint progress, and I think—
But wait, what's Exit Course mean?
You know what it means! I think it would be very useful to also add a Restart from Checkpoint option to the menu. The reason I say this is because oftentimes a creator overlooks something during level creation and may unintentionally create what is known as a soft lock. A soft lock is an instance in which the player becomes stuck at one point in the level, unable to progress or even die to restart from the checkpoint. In this scenario, they are forced to either wait for the timer to run out so they can return to the checkpoint, or just start the level over from the beginning and lose all of their progress up to that point. Both options are extremely wasteful of time and could be remedied by the simple addition of a Restart from Checkpoint button. And finally, the last change I would make involves liking and booing levels. After you like or boo a level in Mario Maker 2, you can't unlike it or unboo it if you change your mind, or if you press the wrong one by accident. This is extremely annoying since I have accidentally booed levels that I really liked many times, and I've accidentally liked levels that I hated. Having the simple ability to change this would be extremely helpful, and it really is confusing as to why it didn't exist in the first place. Every single other medium that allows for liking and disliking allows you to change your decision after you have already made it. The time has finally come to mention the level editor, arguably the most important part of the entire game, the bread and butter, the foundation, if you will. While this iteration of the editor is much better than the original and is consequently even more expansive, there's still a lot to be desired, and like I said earlier, it doesn't just involve the addition of new course parts. First off, I want to mention the numerous unnecessary restrictions that the editor puts on the creator for seemingly no reason. For starters, there's the time limit. This can currently be changed to range anywhere from 10 to 500 seconds. That may seem like a sufficient range at face value, however, I believe the upper limit should be greatly increased, or better yet, given the option to remove the time limit altogether. In a lot of cases, limiting the player to completing the level within that time window is completely pointless. Some levels, especially on a first playthrough, by design will take much longer than 500 seconds to complete, and checkpoints have to be used to avoid too much lost progress on a timeout death. But that obviously is just a bandaged solution to a problem that shouldn't exist in the first place. If they genuinely don't want to add the option to increase the time limit, please, for the love of God, at least add placeable time clocks that will add to the timer like they have in 3D World. An argument against this change could be something along the lines of, the time limit is actually good to have, that way players are unable to make unnecessarily long levels. This statement doesn't really hold up well because, well, the unnecessarily long and tedious levels literally just won't get played, let alone completed, pushing them all the way down the list of popularity. Besides, garbage levels like the ones suggested already exist in the current version of Mario Maker. Take these types of levels for example, commonly titled DMV simulators, where the player is forced to do the same thing over and over throughout the entire 500-second timer. Regardless if the timer exists or not, it won't stop people from being annoying idiots.
Please tell me I'm funny.
The next unnecessary restriction is related to the editor controls, specifically the multi-grab and copy controls. In Mario Maker 2, the button for the eraser is mapped to either the L or R shoulder buttons, and the multi-grab and copy are mapped to either the ZR and ZL shoulder buttons. You'd think that the copy function would be on one shoulder button while the multi-grab function would be on the other, But no, you have to cycle through the functions by pressing the button multiple times. While this was not an extremely horrible restriction, it was, well, unnecessary. The only reason that I think it was made this way was because when you are editing in 2-player mode with 2 singular Joy-Cons, you can only get one set of shoulder buttons, so they wanted to keep it consistent between each mode of creation. However, they could have simply just had the controls be slightly different between each mode, and I'm sure nobody would care, especially since the change will help streamline level creation outside of 2-player mode. Moving forward, let's talk about decoration. I personally am a huge fan of making my levels look as aesthetically pleasing as they possibly can, and it's no secret that Mario Maker isn't exactly the best at enabling that, but there are definitely some methods, albeit unorthodox, to decorate your levels. One of them involves these background decorations that pop up randomly while placing ground tiles. You can actually place them wherever you want by turning on copy mode and dragging each object wherever you want it to be placed. The most tedious part about this, however, comes in getting the desired background object to show up. Like I said, the popping up of these decorations is completely random, so you could be dragging ground tiles for quite a while before you get what you want. The obvious solution to this would be allowing the player to place the decorations individually. This could easily be done by enabling a long press on any exposed ground tile to give the option to attach a decoration to it. Every single course style has them except 3D World, which I'm not sure why that one doesn't, but still, it's a very simple change that could make decorating your levels much less tedious. Also, it would be nice if they added even more types of decorations, since there's only 3 types for each course theme in each course style. Also, and this may be an unnecessary nitpick from me, but why can't we place anything inside the level start area anymore? This was yet another thing possible in the first game, but isn't now. There have been many times where the aesthetics and sometimes even the functionality of my level have suffered because of the relatively large rectangle around the area where the player starts that you aren't allowed to place anything in. There should be only one unavailable grid space in the editor, and it should be the singular space taken up by the player's starting point.
Oh, can't let you put that there. This is my level!
The final 2 unnecessary restrictions involve course themes and the functionalities attached to them. Firstly, let's talk about the themes that involve water and lava, the forest and castle themes respectively. These are the only 2 course themes where the player even has access to either water or lava. There is no way to toggle on water or lava in any other theme, and the only other themes you can swim in are underwater, obviously, and nighttime castle, which only enables water physics for the player, not anything else in the level. I guess you could also say nighttime forest enables lava mechanics as well with the poison liquid. But being able to toggle on the water and lava and choose its height in the other themes should have just been enabled anyway, as well as being able to disable them in the forest and castle themes. Just because it may not look the best in some themes doesn't mean you should restrict players from using it, because, well, this game is about being creative and making whatever you want. Many levels already look like garbage with these restrictions in place anyway, so it wouldn't even make a difference to lift them. Additionally, it would make sense to remove the attachment of night mode gimmicks from their respective course themes as well. Turning a level to night mode will activate some sort of unique gimmick associated with the current course's theme, such as flipping the level upside down or modifying the behaviors of many items and enemies. However, these gimmicks are tied directly to that specific course theme and cannot be used on any other one. A great change to this would be to add a gimmicks button to the editor screen. In this section, you could choose one of the gimmicks that were previously tied to specific themes to apply to your level, no matter what theme you were currently on and whether it was night or day. In my opinion, the night variants of levels should be purely aesthetic, and give the player more options related to how they want their level to look. Now that I've gone over all of the unnecessary restrictions within the editor, I want to mention the small list of additions to it that I think would be extremely beneficial as well. To reiterate, I'm not going to be suggesting any new enemies, blocks, themes, etc. My additions, at least in my opinion, are much more substantial than that. First off, I would love to see the addition of different level exit types. These unique exits would include things like the boss orb from SMB3 or the lock and key from Super Mario World, maybe even the bird's mouth from Super Mario Bros. 2. Having the boss orb would allow the level to finish immediately after a boss battle has been beaten, rather than having to make way to the real exit by doing something such as giving the player a key, which also uses up one of the mere 4 sets of doors you get to use in each section of a level. The lock and key from Super Mario World has obvious implications that I will mention later, and the bird's mouth from SMB2 would just be great to have for variety's sake. Plus, it looks pretty cool. The next addition I would make would be placeable water and lava. Being able to place down water and lava tiles wherever you wanted could enable some really interesting level design, not to mention allow lava and water to be in the same section together, something we also haven't been able to do before. Another addition I'd love to see is the option to lock the player to one power-up for the entire level, such as letting them have the Fire Flower, Cape, or most importantly, the Transformation power-ups, Link and SMB2 Mario for the entire level, even after taking damage. Instead of shrinking after taking damage, a health system could be implemented where the player takes, say, 3 hits before they die. This especially makes sense with the current transformation power-ups since both SMB2 and the Zelda games had health systems. The same concept could just be applied to the other power-ups if the option was enabled. Finally, and I don't know if this would be considered an addition or not, but we need the ability to update levels after we've already uploaded them. This would allow for small modifications to be made to the level without completely deleting it and losing all likes, plays, and comments on the level after it was already uploaded. While this may seem like it allows for levels to be completely modified from their originals and re-uploaded in the same slot, some restrictions could be put into place to prevent too much from being changed. These restrictions would include not being able to change the course theme, time of day, and course style. If Nintendo really wanted to, they could limit the amount of block modifications allowed in an update to keep drastic changes from happening. However, this would definitely also prove problematic in some situations. The point is that it's extremely annoying to lose all the stats on a level just to move over that one block or delete that one enemy. Next, let's talk about music. There isn't enough of it. Since Mario Maker's inception, there has been only one music track tied to each course theme and style, with no way to change it to a different track. Sure, in Mario Maker 2 you can choose from a very small selection of music options in the sound effects menu, but that obviously isn't going to fit every scenario and theme. At the very least, it would be great to get more of these music options to place down, maybe even including some original tracks not found in any previous Mario games. The ideal scenario, however, would be allowing the player to choose any music track for any level, with multiple options that fit the vibe of each theme. So, for example, there would be, say, 2 to 3 different choices for a snow-themed track in the SMB3 style. But if the player really wanted to, they could use the castle theme from 3D World. Giving the player these freedoms won't really hurt anything, and I personally would be excited to see what kind of aesthetics are managed to be created alongside using a music track in an unorthodox theme. I'm just so tired of hearing the same music over and over again every time I play a level.
I don't want to listen to it anymore. You are gonna listen to and you are gonna like it. Shut up, pig squeak.
Last but not least, let's talk about clear conditions. These specific criteria that could be configured to be met before the player can finish a level was a great addition to Mario Maker 2, but I feel there's still a lot to be desired when it comes to them as well. For starters, because of the way they are designed, once a clear condition is met, the player still has to make their way to the goal before the level is actually considered complete. For some clear conditions, this doesn't have to be the case, and the level could just end after the condition is met, such as the conditions to collect a certain amount of coins or to defeat a certain amount of enemies. This could tie into my suggestion of different exit types from earlier, since this could be yet another way to finish levels. Obviously, not all clear conditions could have this option, such as not touching the ground or never taking damage, but for ones where it does make sense, the option would be great. Also, and this is a really outlandish suggestion, but I thought it was cool to mention anyway, what if we could stack clear conditions? So you could have 2 or even 3 clear conditions active at once. Something like collect 30 coins, defeat the Boom Boom, and never take damage. This will definitely never happen, but it sure is a cool idea. Next, I would also suggest that checkpoints be enabled with some clear conditions as well. For those who may not know, whenever any clear condition is active, the creator is no longer allowed to place down checkpoints in the level. However, like the last suggestion, there are some conditions that could have checkpoints enabled and just save the status of the condition once the checkpoint is reached. But having this many different options and caveats within the clear condition menu could become convoluted and overly complex. So either the menu would need a severe redesign to separate the different classifications of clear conditions, or these types of changes may just be a bit too technical to warrant a spot within the simple and easy usage philosophy of the Mario Maker editor. One thing I don't think is overcomplicated though is actually including the multiple clear conditions from the story mode that aren't present in the actual editor. These include reaching the goal after handstanding on a certain amount of trees, reaching the goal with a stone in your hand, reaching the goal without ever touching a swinging claw, reaching the goal without leaving water, and reaching the goal with a certain amount of toads following you. All of these would be extremely fun to have as usable clear conditions, especially the stone one. I can see so many cool levels designed around carrying that stone. Additionally, and this is just an idea, a rescue/hostage mission could be created with the toad clear condition, where you have to find and rescue every toad and bring them to the goal. There isn't really any apparent reason, at least to me, that these clear conditions weren't available to the player in the main editor, especially since they were included in story mode anyway, which was meant to give the player inspiration in building their own levels. And now we arrive at the world editor, which is definitely the most limited aspect of the game by a long shot. Don't get me wrong, I'm very glad this feature ever got added in the first place. It's definitely not something I thought was in the realm of possibility, but they could have done so much more with it. First off, the same issue arises in relation to levels and music with the worlds as well. Each world theme has only one music track attached to it, with no options to change to an alternate track. And there are plenty more options to choose from previous games that would work great, so new original tracks wouldn't even have to be made. On top of that, the list of tracks is even more limited because the world editor is limited only to the Super Mario World style, so that means there's only a total of 8 possible music tracks, and they're all tied to their own respective worlds. Forget about the lack of music, I'd love to see the other core styles make their way into the editor, at least Super Mario Bros. 1 and 3. They may have only included the Super Mario World style because this was just a free content update, so I could definitely see them including all core styles in a potential sequel. Another thing that is extremely limited is the options for terrain and decorations. Nearly everything you can place in the world editor is contained within the singular row of objects at the top of the screen. Because of how small the selection is, it's very difficult to make your world look unique in comparison to all the others. The lack of object variety, coupled with the absence of any styles other than Super Mario World, all with no additional music options, essentially makes every Super World feel like a slightly rearranged version of the last.
Listen, I swear they're different.
The obvious solution to all of this for the sequel would be to expand the tile variety, available core styles, and options for music. Now, I know I said I wouldn't just be suggesting the addition of more stuff, but here's the thing. The world editor is so extremely bare bones in its options that this is really what it needs before anything else is even discussed. Things like multiple height levels for the terrain, differently shaped terrain, different types of bridges, different path types, and more decorative options would all be great in allowing players to make their worlds actually feel unique. Before more advanced features are going to come to this editor, these crucial ones need to come first. However, let's discuss the advanced features anyway. The first one, and honestly this isn't even advanced at all, is the expansion of the building area for the worlds. As it stands, the player is given a total of 28 tiles to work with in their world, with no way to expand past that. This means that every world is contained to one screen, which is good for simplicity's sake, but contributes to the same problem I mentioned earlier of every world looking and feeling the same. The next feature I would add would be the option to disable the lives counter. Just like the level timer, there are many scenarios where lives don't have a purpose being a mechanic at all, and the option to remove them would be highly beneficial for worlds that have levels where the player is expected to die often, or where the creator just doesn't want the player to have to worry about them. And finally, the last option I would add is the choice to allow power-ups to carry over between levels. This would allow for Super Worlds to feel even more like an actual Mario game, since currently you are reset back to a small form every time you switch levels. To finish, I'd like to suggest quite an outlandish feature to come to Super Worlds as well, and that is secret exits. These could be coupled with the lock and key exit I suggested earlier to offer an alternate end to a level that isn't the main goal. Certain paths on the Super World could be marked as secret exit only when attached to a level junction, and once the player finds this exit, they could unlock that path. In the context outside of Super Worlds, there could be two separate exit flags displayed on the level's info page, one for the regular exit and one for the secret exit. And obviously the second flag wouldn't be displayed if the level didn't use a lock and key, meaning it didn't have a secret exit. It's hard to say whether this feature is even feasible within the confines of Mario Maker's simplicity, but it would be amazing to see nonetheless. Ever since this game released, there have been plenty of videos, concepts, and mock-ups made for possible features and additions in a Super Mario Maker 3. But they all failed to look at and reiterate on what was already in the game, since that is arguably more important to focus on before even thinking about adding new course parts, themes, or styles. Super Mario Maker 2, just as it is now, as I said earlier, is far from perfect, so I think that its glaring fundamental issues should be addressed and remedied before even thinking about adding something like a volcano course theme.
Stop looking at me like that! No, I am not drinking again! You're the one that needs to change, not me!